Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted that I'll be sharing my time with my colleague, the member from Calgary Northeast, this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased with this opportunity to join the debate on Bill C-51, the Safer Witness Act. As several of my honourable colleagues have mentioned, the legislation before us today will help to strengthen Canada's federal witness protection program in a number of very important ways. I'd like to focus my remarks on how Bill C-51 will help to better align federal and provincial witness protection in order to offer more efficient process to secure new identities, as well as enhanced and expanded prohibitions against the disclosure of protectee and program information. One key to fully understanding the significance of the legislation before us is to understand how witness protection has evolved in Canada and how it operates today. So I'd like to first briefly talk about this and then direct my attention to how Bill C-51 will achieve the benefits I have just mentioned. Mr. Speaker, witness protection has existed in one form or another in Canada for quite a number of years. Law enforcement has long recognized that witnesses would be much more willing to come forward and cooperate in investigations or prosecutions of crime, including organized crime groups, if they could, in effect, disappear and thereby avoid dangerous repercussions from violent and often lawless organized crime members. Lots of movies have picked up on this idea, and witness protection became something of a household word, even though most did not really understand or know how it worked. Originally, federal witness protection in Canada was an informal set of arrangements without any formalized structure or procedures to define how it should operate. It became more formalized in the 1980s when the RCMP put in place a series of internal guidelines and protocols. That was followed by the introduction, as we've heard today, of legislation in 1996 to provide, among other things, a clear definition of admission criteria for witnesses and a more public and accountable structure for the management of the program. Provincial governments, however, are responsible for the administration of justice within their jurisdiction, and so many have more recently established their own witness security programs. Provincial programs now exist in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Provincially operated witness protection programs provide protective measures ranging from short-term protection to witness management activities to full-fledged relocation and identity changes. And so, Mr. Speaker, only the federal program is legislatively mandated to provide national protection service to all law enforcement agencies in Canada, as well as to international courts and tribunals. As well, federal documents required for secure identity changes are today only provided through the federal program, which is administered by the RCMP. At the present time, we therefore have a witness protection regime in Canada where two jurisdictions share a common goal in protecting key witnesses who can assist in our collective efforts to combat organized crime, but whose programs to accomplish this might, in some cases, be complementary, while in many others don't always operate as seamlessly as they should. A good example is in regard to security identity changes in cases where a provincial Attorney General decides to place an individual in a provincial witness protection program. The way to obtain a complete and secure identity change in this circumstance is for the individual in question to be temporarily admitted into the federal witness protection program, where the RCMP will assist him or her with obtaining federal documents. Some provinces have argued that this process can lead to delays. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-51 will remove the need to temporarily admit individuals from a provincial program into the federal program, thereby allowing the federal and provincial witness protection programs to function more seamlessly. Bill C-51 will establish a process whereby provincial, territorial, and municipal witness protection programs can be designated. On an operational level, This would involve having the provincial authority responsible for the program provide an attestation to the Minister of Public Safety assuring that the program has the necessary capacity to protect its information. As well, Mr. Speaker, Bill C-51 will broaden the current prohibition against the disclosure of information for individuals under the Federal Witness Protection Program and expand their scope to include individuals under designated provincial programs. Today, the Witness Protection Program Act prohibits the disclosure of information about the location or change of identity of a federal protectee or former federal protectee. Bill C-51 will broaden prohibitions of disclosure to include the identity and role of persons who provide or assist in providing protection, any means or method of protection that could endanger protectees and the integrity of witness protection programs, and protectees from designated provincial programs. Mr. Speaker, the current Federal Witness Protection Program has served the criminal justice system well. Today, there are nearly 800 individuals under this program. In 2011-2012 alone, the RCMP considered a total of 108 cases for admission into the Federal Witness Protection Program. 30 protectees were admitted to the program, of which 27 were granted a secure name change. The RCMP also provided assistance to other Canadian law enforcement agencies over the same year, as provided under the existing Witness Protection Program. The fact that the Witness Protection Program is serving the criminal justice system well does not mean there are no room for improvements. The Witness Protection Program Act has not been substantially changed since 1996, despite the increasingly sophisticated and global nature of organized crime. Ongoing consultations with provincial and territorial stakeholders have also helped to highlight some areas where stronger provisions are needed, including those I have mentioned today. I'm very pleased to note that some provincial jurisdictions, as well as law enforcement organizations, have already offered public support for Bill C-51. Bill C-51 addresses the need for modernization as well as enhanced information protection and integration with provincial programs. Bill C-51 introduces reforms to the present witness protection environment that will build on our collective efforts to combat organized crime as well as terrorist organizations, and in that way, help us all continue to build safer streets and communities for everyone. I therefore will be supporting Bill C-51, and I join my colleagues on all sides of the government in encouraging all honourable members to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. Honourable Député de Louis.
The honourable member for Louis-Hébert. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for his speech. We've already announced that we support this bill, although we would like it to go a little further. Let's talk about practical matters, though. Yes, it's a wonderful thing to improve the program, but on some front it's going to cost. So it won't just be federal police forces that are going to be requiring funding. I'd like my colleague to perhaps share some thoughts as to the issue of the required additional funding to support this bill.
West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the deliberations and development of this bill, I think it's important to note that we have in this House of Commons 12 former police officers who have been integral in providing information, some of them high-ranking police chiefs who have great knowledge of what it takes to make a system work, to develop new processes, and clearly the cost issue, as my honourable friend opposite has brought up, is something that was well discussed. And I'd like to quote from the Assistant Commissioner of the RCMP, Mr. Todd Sheehan, who appeared before committee twice on this very issue, or commented on this very issue, February 28th and March the 5th, where he said, quote, "With the changes this bill brings about, the RCMP is comfortable that we have the resources within our existing resources to run an effective witness protection program." And on March the 5th, he went on to comment, "I'm confident that we have the necessary resources to conduct an effective witness protection program, even with what Bill C-51 adds." I think that clearly he has demonstrated, as other police forces have, that the funding issue is not an issue at all, and that within their own resources they'll meet that requirement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Okanagan-Coquihalla.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I must say I'm very excited about this bill proceeding forward. I appreciate the honourable member's speech today. Certainly, witness protection, we all have, from watching movies, we all have our own impressions of it. So for him to give us some of the history, but also to map out why he feels this is a compelling piece of legislation that needs to go forward. Mr. Speaker, I would say that most people here want to see safety, security. We want to see a more efficiently run, a more effective public safety system, and I think this is in our national interest. So sometimes we just need to put aside partisanship. We've seen support at committee. We've heard the NDP and Liberal Party come in support of this bill. I would just like the member to reiterate why it's in our national interest as Canadians to see this piece of legislation go forward.
The honourable member for Don Valley West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague. And it's a very good question, because our government is focused on keeping our streets and communities safe. And an effective and reliable witness protection program is valuable in the fight against crime, especially organized crime and terrorism. And in today's world, as I mentioned in my presentation, with technology moving at the rate it is, and with the resources that organized crime have available to them, it's important that we provide our police forces and our policing organizations with the tools that they require to get the job done to protect our citizens and our constituents in our ridings, regardless which party we represent. Hear, hear.